Hello and welcome to the next episode of The Conscious Female Founder. I am your host, Sally Tarbox. I am so excited to be sat down with you guys here today. I am the proud owner of this podcast. I am also the owner of a business called The Empowerment Movement, where I coach other women and female entrepreneurs on mindset and how to add passive income streams to their business. I have been privileged enough to be featured on Fox TV, Women of Influence. I'm also an international best-selling author and a mindset coach. But I'm super excited to be sat down with you guys today. I love being able to sit down and share really inspiring stories of other women and female entrepreneurs that at some point in life have had their back up against the wall, but have broken away from the norms and set up their own business and are striving and making waves in their own way to support other females, families, children, whatever that might look like for them. And today I was sat down with the beautiful Talia. We met probably about a month ago. I put a post out to other women that might be interested to be featured on this podcast because they have a story of their own and they're supporting other people. Talia is a neurodiversity coach, I think I pronounced that right, and business coach, and she is supporting so many people all over the place. And in regards to, I guess, thinking differently and how that looks like for them. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I probably have not introduced you particularly well, so I'd love you to be able to just obviously introduce yourself and what it is that you do and why you do it.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, Sally. Thanks so much.
No,
and it was lovely to meet you a month ago. I'm glad that we've planned this. So it's really nice to be here. So in answer to your question, you did get it really very close. So I'm a neurodivergency coach. I work with families and I also work with business owners. The majority of the business owners are women that are running their business but also have got something going on for themselves and or at home with their kids. So yeah, that's a one-to-one service. It's something I do over a course of a number of months with individuals to help them in areas that they need. And so some of this work's done by a charity which is local to me in Hertfordshire, which is 𝐓𝐴dvance. So
amazing. Just so people understand, because when I first kind of came across you, I was like, I must admit, I was like, what is neurodiversity? Like, what is that? It was a word I hadn't personally come across. And I started doing a little digging, obviously a little research into it. And I guess it's the way we think, right? And everybody thinks differently. And there must be kind of like a scale of how people think differently. I think for me, maybe because sometimes I live in my own little world, I'm like, well, it's just how I think, or this is how that person thinks. But what is neurodiversity?
So I'm really glad you've asked, actually, because as I mentioned to you before, I've been interviewed on a couple of other podcasts, and I listened to one of them the other week because somebody was asking me about it. And then I realized, actually, if the audience isn't familiar with the subject, they're not really necessarily going to understand. So neurodiversity is kind of an umbrella term for what some people will say being on the spectrum is. So neurodiversity encompasses things like autism, ADHD. Autism is sometimes called ASD or ASC, so it's abbreviated. It's also ADD, OCD. So I don't know if you're familiar with these terms, but as Tourette's, which is sometimes seen in different ways, but is often to do with tics and to do with people speaking things that without really having control over it. Then it kind of digs a bit deeper. It can touch on a little bit like eating disorders and other things as well, but the main aspect, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia also comes under it. So yeah, the main ones are autism and ADHD, and the dyslexia, the dyscalculia, kind of, they're the ones that tend to be the most prominent. And quite a lot of people will have one or two. They don't necessarily just have one. So having that term neurodiversity or neurodivergent is helpful, because especially when you've got more than one thing going on, it just encompasses that the person is a bit different, like you mentioned, that your brain works in a slightly different way, that you communicate maybe in a different way, learn differently. But yeah, you wouldn't necessarily know a lot of the time that someone is neurodivergent. especially because a lot of neurodivergent people will mask and they will mirror the people around them. They will
Understood.
mask, as in they will hide their true self because they want to fit in.
Yes.
And they will try really hard to keep up with others and in education, things like that. So yeah, you wouldn't necessarily know. It can take quite a bit of time to uncover these traits sometimes.
Yeah, of course. And give us a little bit of a backstory of your backstory, because you've actually been through this, haven't you? Because I know obviously you've got two sons and they are on the ASD spectrum. So you have firsthand knowledge and experience of going through this process and really, I guess, developing your life around them. And I think that's amazing. I think that's why your business is so powerful. It's like you walk you walk the talk, if that makes sense. You've been there, you understand it. So you can really, when you're working with these families or these people that think obviously differently, you have the experience to be able to literally hold their hand and kind of see the next step for them. But I mean, obviously your boys obviously a bit older now, they're in their teens, but when if you don't mind mercy, like when was it where you kind of started to think, oh, because you came from a corporate background as well, didn't you?
Yes.
So there must have been a point where obviously you were working quite a high pressure job in the corporate industry, obviously raising two kids, and things maybe weren't quite aligning.
Yeah, absolutely. I first kind of picked up on things being slightly different with my son, who, when he was 18 months, when he first started using words and language and stringing things together and how he'd explain things. And I thought they were a bit unusual. And I initially thought, oh, maybe he's dyslexic, because I'm dyslexic, so is my dad, so is my mum. So I thought, yeah, okay, so maybe that's what it is. I didn't really think much of it, and that kind of was my normal as well. That actually, the dyslexia runs in the family. It's kind of a normal thing. So that's what I was familiar with. So that's where I kind of first picked up on it, and then I obviously sent him to school when he was 4, and he struggled a bit with reading and a little bit with writing and spelling and things. So that feeling of dyslexia continued. And then I suppose it wasn't really until a bit later on, more when he was like 6 or 7, that I'd spoken to school a few times, and I was thinking, actually, dyslexia is not adding up here. Like, of course, there's lots of traits. There's other things going on as well.
Going on here.
But school kind of weren't really helping me to unpick it and understand it, and were gaslighting me a little bit, and like, oh, you think something's wrong? No, there's nothing wrong. That kind of behaviour, like not really supporting my thinking. So it took a little while, probably until more like he was 8, when the social struggle, that kind of thing at school, social engagement, having friends over, behaviours. He didn't like going to parties, didn't like loud noises and the chaos. So there were certain traits that I started to pick up on, as well as the educational side of things, that I thought, actually, there's something else going on. So then I think what really kind of then tweaked things, like triggered things for me, was that there were other kids around that were starting to get diagnosed with things like ADHD and autism. So I started doing a bit of research. Asked the doctor, and they again kind of like, no, there's nothing wrong. We can't help with dyslexia anyway, was the kind of answer. So then it was more when he got to 8, 9 years old. He got bullied quite a lot at school, and things weren't great. COVID was a slight blessing for us, because in year 6 he came out of school just at a crucial point where he was being really physically bullied quite a lot, and actually it was great for him, because
that's a blessing in disguise, isn't it?
It was a huge blessing for him, whereas my younger one wasn't a blessing, because he wanted to be around friends and see people, and was desperately wanted to get out of the house. So it was quite an interesting
there's an interesting dynamic to then have to navigate, isn't it?
Exactly, totally different. But yeah, for him it was great. So meanwhile, I backtrack a little bit. Up until about the age of 8, I had been trying to unpick this, doing a little bit of research, started to go on to parenting courses, but also started to struggle with the whole hours in the corporate world, and going to appointments, going to even stuff for school, going to extra meetings with teachers and things, because stuff was going on. It became quite challenging. So then I was in a contract with 𝐵𝒆𝒄𝒉, and it was a contract local to home, and thought I was in two minds. Do I carry on or don't I? Because the job was changing slightly. It didn't really suit me, but I was just kind of, as per usual, thinking I need to
Just
pay
going with
bills.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I need to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But then actually it turns out that I didn't kind of fit the mold for them, and that was a blessing as well. So the contract that I was on didn't continue, and I was left thinking, I need something that's going to fit the family. I need to do something that gives me flexibility. So I was looking for the jobs, didn't really find anything, and then thought, okay, let's just take a break for a bit, be there for the kids, and maybe try and think of a way to work for myself. And because I had been for 𝐵𝒄𝒉, I was working in business improvement. Before that, I was working in continuous improvement. So I knew a lot of business processes, strategies, like fine-tuning things. So yeah, it just basically led me to being a coach. I got myself a coach to help me to coach, and then went on some training courses. So the rest is kind of history. So I started out being a business coach, but then as I understood my boys more and more, got them diagnosed, went on parenting courses more, lots and lots of them, connected more with Advance, the ADHD and Autism Trust. I then kind of niched into working more with families, and particularly with women that were kind of been on a similar journey to me, and were struggling and finding things challenging. But or probably further back in the line, hadn't learned
Absolutely.
as much.
Yeah. Like almost at the start of their journey, you're kind of 10 steps forward, sort of like, right, I've started to figure this out, but obviously I can see where you've come from. That's absolutely incredible. So now you work with women and families with children, obviously, who of neurodiversity. And which I think is absolutely incredible, to be quite honest with you, because there's so many more buzzwords right now, and labels and things like that. And yes, I like using labels, and no, I don't kind of conflict about it. But what I'm getting at is, I think it's great that you're now kind of shining a spotlight on this, because yes, you must get to a point where if you get a diagnosis on something like this, obviously I don't personally have experience, so please stop me if I'm wrong. It must be great to get the diagnosis, but then to know what to do next must be the bit that is like, okay, so now I know what's going on, but I don't quite know what to do next. And it must be a real sort of minefield for people in that particular situation. So for someone like yourself to be able to almost take their hand and be like, this is what's going to happen next, or this is the things that we need to start thinking about, especially if it's your child and we're mums, do you know what I mean? And you're trying to support them the best way you can. It must be, to a certain degree, bit stabbing in the dark, but to have someone like yourself to be able to support them in that way, I think is incredibly powerful and amazing as well. Like if I was in that position, I'd love to have someone like you on board to be able to just guide me through the process.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I mean, I've had so many coaches myself that have been from that background, but also business kind of coaches. And I think it's invaluable in the same way as if you had a personal training coach or a nutritional coach or any kind of coach. To me, having a bit of TLC is amazing. I don't know. Have you ever heard of the series on Netflix called Queer Eye for the? It was called Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. It's now just called.
I've not heard of this.
So it's a series I watched years ago, and basically it's these people that apply for a family member to have some support because they're kind of run down, burnt out, or things are going wrong in life, that whether it's their bodies, whether it's their job, whether it's their home, or all of that, they've had a hard time of some sort and in a bit of a rut. So these 5 guys come in and nurture that person. There's somebody that does their home, somebody that does their hobbies and helps them with life in general, finding passions, somebody that helps them with their career, somebody helps them with their fashion, somebody helps them with their diet. And when I see that, that's what I want to kind of embody in a really small way in terms of coaching. It's so uplifting. You watch this, and these people, after a week of being nurtured to that extent, they come out new people. It's wonderful to watch. Some people might call it kind of cheesy TV, but like for me, I watch it and think it's lovely,
it has such a ripple effect as well, doesn't it? You must find this as well, the work that you're doing. It has such a huge ripple effect, because if you can support the parent, whether that be the mother or the father, they then are able to support the child. Then the effect that will have on the family unit and the atmosphere at home will be huge. Obviously, that will then have an effect on the child and the way that they are then able to kind of nurture other relationships, whether that be with other children and friendships and things like that. So it has this
Massive.
It's like you go in at the center and it has such this ripple effect, and that's why I'm like, this is incredible, because you're doing something that's so powerful, but it's going to spread out, and it's going to positively affect everyone within that kind of area, and I love that.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you've touched on that, because one of my passions more recently is about working with frontline kind of world, like the schools, like GPs,
Yes.
like universities, and one of my frustrations is that gaslighting element, that you don't know what's going on. You go to the GP, you go to the teachers, and there isn't anybody really identifying and helping you to understand your child. But then you've suddenly got this maybe ADHD misbehaving child that's causing a ruckus, that's not wanting to come into school, is misbehaving and being unkind to kids. And actually, if it had been identified and the needs of the child had been addressed,
Yes.
that simple things like where they sit in the classroom, giving them extra breaks, giving them more little jobs to do, so that they're getting up and about and they're feeling responsible and proud of themselves. Just the smallest things that can make a huge, massive difference.
Yes.
And obviously all those other kids that are in the classroom that are they're being disrupted too.
Yeah.
So if I could get in front of people on the front line, I'd really love to be able to say to them, look, there's just tiny things that you could do differently, supporting that parent and listening to them, and actually listening to what they're saying to you, and helping them unpick what's going on with their child. And perhaps there is something that's neurodivergent that's going on, and that they've got some neurodiversity, and helping them to see that and help them with it. But also then, for me, if you looked at the long-term impact of that in life, it's massive. I know I'm doing a big jump here, but then you look at the stats of prison, for instance, and the amount of ADHD people that are in prison, the amount of ADHD people that are drug dealers, or not drug takers, because they're trying to self-medicate.
Almost like self-soothe.
Yes. Exactly. So I don't mean to tarnish somebody with ADHD at all, but I'm just saying that percentage wise, when you look at that, and so it's a big passion of mine that actually, if we could help the child, help the family to start with, we don't have to have that ripple effect, and how it affects the wider community as well.
That's absolutely incredible, because I mean, I've got a daughter who's 7, so she's still little. So kind of thinking, I guess, like having that emotional connection there, thinking if I had a child that was particularly struggling, and whether they were going through something, whether they were being bullied, whether they're really struggling at school, or whatever that might look like, it kind of, and then to think of someone like yourself to be like, you're there, yes, you're helping the family, you're helping the parents, but actually you're helping the child, so that they can, so that they don't feel different. It's just about tweaking things that work for them, so that they then, in their mind and their body, they feel so much more settled, they feel so much more supported. That for me is like the real emotional piece, because I can kind of resonate, because I've got a little one anyway. But to know that there's people out there like yourself that are doing that, for me is like, I love you for that. Like, thank you. Please don't ever stop doing what you're doing, because although my daughter doesn't suffer, but there are other children that do. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for helping other people. Going back a little bit, obviously you kind of came from the corporate world, obviously doing the real job. I think we've all been there.
That's what I call it as well.
That's it, the real world. I think that on the other side, like, it's great. You're like, actually, I love this world. There must have been times when kind of you were going through that process of obviously having a corporate job, having the boys, obviously, feeling like you're torn in completely different directions. It must have been like kind of feeling like you're torn to the left and to the right. And obviously the responsibility on both is huge, right? And making that break and making that jump. How did that feel for you? Because there are lots of women out there who I speak to that are like, oh, you know what, like, I wish I could go and do this, and I wish I could go and do that. But there is a sense of a lack of confidence or imposter syndrome that kind of creeps in, even though they have walked the path that actually they're then passionate about setting up the business in. Did you ever feel like that along the way, where you kind of got to moments where you thought, oh, is it just easier to go and get another job? Is it easier just to go back to the real world? Is it, maybe I'm a bit of imposter. Like, did you ever feel any of those sorts of things?
I did a little bit at the beginning,
Yeah.
but and it don't get me wrong, it's not easy, especially
Oh
setting your
gosh,
own
no, 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 no.
boundaries, making sure that you reach out for help when you really need it and not,
Yeah.
putting pressure on yourself to do it all by yourself.
Mm,
There's a lot of things that
big
really
one.
take long time to learn. And I see so many people, especially women, go through these steps because
Yes.
they don't feel that they deserve the help that they need,
Yeah.
whether it's an accountant, whether it's a web designer, whether it's a
Yes.
brand designer, that lots of people will start a business and doing it all themselves, thinking that it's their responsibility, they need to, instead of actually putting all their energy into the service that they want to provide.
Yes.
They're busy building the business, busy managing the business, and yeah, it's a shame to see that. And I did a lot of that myself, because obviously you go into it and you're not necessarily earning the income.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will start building a business and not necessarily give themselves a budget, thinking, okay, I'm going to start my business and this is how much I'm going to give myself
Yeah.
to get myself off the ground. You kind of almost feel like you need to start earning money before you can spend money.
But yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, you
Yeah.
do. I get to that
And
point.
it's kind of like you're then stuck in this spiral,
It's
really.
spiral. Yeah.
Yes. So, because obviously, if you spend a bit of money on marketing or you spend a bit of money on building a website, then actually that's going to get you further quicker. And
Yes.
it's the same with the coach. That same concept, that if you spend some money on a coach, that's going to get you further quicker. All these things you could do yourself, but it's a struggle. Whereas
Yeah.
if you get the support, then it makes a world of difference, and you can move so much faster.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
it, so yes, there was lots of things that I was kind of feeling a little bit stuck on. Lots of things that I just thought, like, oh no, I should be able to do that myself.
Mhm.
So I make it a point to help people to realize that, what, this is your skill set, and it's okay to
Yeah.
reach out, even if it's a swap. You don't have to necessarily be paying
Yes.
for the help. Somebody could do your logo for you, and you could do a
Do
facial for
something for
somebody
them.
else. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? So
Yes.
it can work both ways. It's my dog's wandering past. It's not a person.
Sorry, I just saw the door open in the background.
so yeah, it doesn't have to be a financial exchange. You can find ways
Yeah.
around it to start with, and that can work with having an accountability partner instead of a coach
Yes.
at the beginning as well.
Yeah.
So there are ways, but it's just realizing that actually you need the help, and it's going to help you get where you want to be a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So
And I love that. This is the big thing that I love about the coaching industry. I mean, I have an amazing network of other people, and they all have skills in such different areas. But I love about the coaching industry is that we support each other. We really, really do support each other. And there have been many moments where clients have come to me and they've got struggles in particular areas, and I'll be like, do you know what? Not my area of expertise, not mine, but I can recommend you someone. And I love that we kind of support each other, that we lift each other up. Do you know what? Oh, I know someone that might help you with that, or I know someone that might help with that, or other people like recommend you as well. And I think that is so important. And I think I love what you said in regards to, you've had coaches yourself as well. I have as well. I still do to this day. And sometimes it doesn't have to be like the people that are doing huge things. Actually, sometimes it's the people that are literally 10 steps in front of you, that have they've walked the path already, that have worked it
In
out.
many ways, they're more valuable than the
They
people that have had
are.
20
Yes,
years of experience, because they
absolutely.
feel it, they
Yeah, they can
understand
feel it
it.
and they can resonate with you so much more, because you
Yes.
might be coming up against things, they'll be like, oh yeah, that was a struggle of mine a couple of years ago, this is what I did, this is what I implemented, here you go, here's the strategy, this is what you need to do. And I think that is actually, like you said, it's actually more powerful than the people that are like 20 years down the line, that sometimes it takes a lot to kind of like think, oh, what was I doing back then?
But things change as well, though. Like
Of course they
social
do.
media has
Yeah.
changed, and
Yeah.
the internet's changed so much that actually somebody that's only just a little bit in front of you
Yeah.
knows it. They're really truly feeling it. It can be really powerful. Absolutely.
Yeah. So with the business at the moment, obviously you work privately with people on like a one-to-one basis. Do you work in schools, or kind of what your visions of how you would, because is there still an element of, well, I guess you have said it, like I was going to say taboo around this sort of subject. I know you said obviously you suffered from gaslighting from obviously from the medical industry a little bit, from school a little bit. Is there still a taboo around this sort of subject, or is the light being shined on it much more?
I think there is a little bit more awareness, especially with
Yeah.
ADHD. People are more accepting and more
Yeah.
understanding of it. Less so of autism, and autism is so much, is so very complex in
Yes.
terms of that you can be very, very high functioning is the
Yeah.
term that's used, which I don't really like particularly because it kind of makes you seem like they don't need support,
Yeah.
but somebody that lives and breathes and is independent and does things on their own, and isn't, and can go to school, can go to work, things like that, but they still have needs, and they're they're kind of not necessarily noticed.
Yeah.
And then you've got the textbook type of person that maybe is more visible because of their behaviors and the way they communicate, that and needs a lot more support. But also people that don't even, they're non-verbal, for instance, and
Yeah.
their communication is even more of a challenge.
Yeah.
So there's a massive scale.
Yes.
So I think autism is, because of its complexity, it's not understood.
Yeah.
And I would wholeheartedly say that I didn't understand it. And one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I didn't identify the need for my kids to be diagnosed for quite a while was because of my textbook understanding of it, is
Yes,
the
I
way
can
I see it.
understand that. Yeah.
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 So that's typical, that stereotypical image I had of autism. So until you start kind of unpicking it and understanding that actually there's so much more to it, that it means that lots of people are unaware. So that awareness piece that I'm passionate about is because I'd like people to understand,
Yes.
and to understand that actually there can be some really small things to make a huge difference for these people's needs.
Yes.
Um, just down to lighting and noise, and
Yeah.
and doors, and just so many little tiny things that can make a massive difference, even to meetings and to technology
Yes.
and things. So
Yeah, I
it's
remember when we were talking about it, I remember one of the things you said to me, and I was like, that's really interesting. This is when we were chatting before, and you said, oh, like it can even be down to kind of like the texture of the clothes that someone's wearing or the child is wearing, that actually could be really triggering for them. So it's just understanding those small tweaks and those small things, and being able to advise the parent and coach the parent through that actually will have quite a big effect on the child. And I was
yeah,
like, that's
absolutely.
really interesting that it can be something that small. And like you said,
Yes.
like where they sit in the classroom, or being able to stand up, or being able to do little tasks that maybe give praise or whatever that might look like, that then validate the child and make the child feel better, make the child feel more settled. So then they can then focus better, easier. And obviously then that has a bigger effect on the whole class as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's absolutely
Yeah.
huge. That's amazing. I honestly, I'm so grateful that you're sitting down and talking about this, because this is huge, and it has, like I said, such a ripple effect on so many people. So obviously, yes, like I said, you're working with families at the moment. Obviously, you're really passionate about driving this awareness, which I'm so grateful for. How else do you work with people? Because I'm guessing you work online with people, that you work with people all over the place. Like, are you looking to get into schools? What's your vision for your business?
So my vision is definitely to get into school. So if anybody's listening and they work for a school, and I think that
Absolutely.
that they'd like to have some sort of workshop for an awareness piece, yeah, I'd love to
Yes.
come in.
Yes.
I run a networking group as well, and I really appreciated what you were saying earlier about connecting with people,
Yeah.
and stand to helping each other out and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So I that's how I connect with people. But I also then will do presentations quite often at networking events or other conferences and things. I mainly work online like this
Yeah.
if I'm doing one-to-ones, unless somebody is literally down the road.
Yeah, of course.
So but yeah, the dream is to continue doing this and helping families, and like I do through the charity too, but also then to kind of have that opportunity to maybe go into schools or to talk to GPs or something along
Yeah.
those lines, just to help people to have a better understanding.
It is honestly amazing, because you will have such a ripple effect, and you will have a long-term ripple effect. That's the thing, because you may well
Mm.
work with families at the moment that have got small children, and with your help and your support and your guidance, you'll be able to help them, yes, now immediately, but actually the effect that will have on the child in the long term will be huge, will be absolutely massive. Like you said, unfortunately, yeah, you're not stereotyping, but unfortunately there are statistics that show that obviously children that suffer in this way maybe go down a certain route, or the percentage is higher, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that you're doing this now, and this is something that I'm really, really passionate about, is actually sometimes the work that we do, you don't ever get to see the kind of the bigger end result, if that makes sense. I was having a conversation with someone about this today, and I was saying, do you know what? This is why I'm so passionate about doing this podcast, is because actually I maybe sometimes don't see the results. And I don't see the results in the sense of someone might listen to this and it just might get them to think differently. It might just change just a small part of their life or their world. And I don't get to see that, but I'm so passionate about doing it. And that's why I will always keep doing it, because I want to keep inspiring people and keep shining a spotlight on other incredible women's businesses. So what I'm kind of getting at is actually the work that you're doing now is so important because it will have such a long-term effect that you might never get to see, but that feeling for me is just amazing, because you will probably have such a positive impact on someone's life and the people around them for such a long time, and that's incredible. That is honestly incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's so true. It's absolutely, you're absolutely right, because who's to say? I mean, if 10 people or 1,000 people watch this or hear this, whether the impact it has on them, we have no idea. But I really do hope it has. It at least helps one person,
exactly
to have that realization that they're not the only ones, that there is something going on, that if they're being gaslighted or they are struggling, to reach out. There's so many resources out there, and once they have that little bit of awareness, they can start researching for themselves the different trusts out there and neurodivergent see kind of websites with resources and stuff, or even Advanced, the one that I work for, has got loads and lots of workshops as well. So there's stuff out there if they want to dig a bit deeper and understand.
And thank you for sharing that as well. Like, I really appreciate that you just shared that, because actually it probably can be quite lonely. Like, parenting as a whole can be lonely, to be quite honest with you. There are definitely moments I feel very alone, and you feel like your back is up against a wall about something, and it can be, even when you've got a teeny tiny baby and you're the one that's awake in the middle of the night and you feel like everyone else on the whole planet is asleep, it can be lonely. So I love that, the fact that you've just touched on that, because actually it doesn't need to be. Even if you feel like you're struggling, or you're struggling with your child, or you're struggling yourself, it doesn't need to be this sense of loneliness. Actually, there is a community, and there are people out there that will support you, that will help you.
Once you start going down that road of looking and researching, there's lots and lots of groups out there, huge. I know, and I know I've mentioned Advanced so many times already, but even on Facebook, there's about 5,000 people in the group, and if you needed anything, you wouldn't even need to ask. You could just search for the subject of what you're struggling with, and you could see the other conversations and see what people are suggesting and how they handle it. Just to know that actually other people have been there before you, and this is what they've done, and this is what you could do differently. To reach out or to search and to find out for yourself. There's a lot out there.
Thank you so much for what you're doing. I do genuinely mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I feel like you're having such an impact in so many family homes, and that for me is huge, and you're supporting so many people. So
that's so lovely.
Please don't ever give up. Please don't ever stop, because there will always be a need for this, and you will be so greatly received by people. Like, you really genuinely will. So thank you so much. I guess my last and final question for you is, if you were yourself 5 years ago, if that makes sense, but with all the knowledge you have today, or 10 years ago, or whatever, and obviously you're up against these particular struggles, but equally at the same time you're wanting to break free from the mold and leave the real world, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
I think if I wanted to break away from the mold and start on my own, I would think about what I'm passionate about, what lights me up, what brings me joy. Sometimes it's through the trauma that you've been through, the struggles, the journeys you've been on, whether that's that you were an athlete and you broke your leg and you had to pivot and do something different, whether you are somebody that was really overweight and managed to find a way to be healthy in yourself, whether you had mental health issues, whether you're fantastic at design and you want to share that with the world, whether if you're somebody that is a therapist, or whatever that passion is that you have, and whatever that whether it's come from a trauma or creativity, is to follow that dream. Why not do something with that? I've had so many women in particular build a business from something that they are passionate about.
I love that.
Because they want to help others. They've been through an experience and they want to share it, and that's where it comes from. So if you wanted to build a business, I'd definitely say that's where to start, for sure. And then if you want a tip that I often would want to give myself 5 years ago in terms of parenting would be to let go of the social norms. So whether that's the feeling that your child needs to go to ballet, whether it's the feeling that your child needs to wear an outfit that is all in one color that works and looks great, whether it's the fact that the child needs to eat 3 square meals a day, or whether it's that they've got to have social play dates all the time, they've got to go to parties. I could go on and on and on. All those things that you feel like that you and your child should be doing to fit in, to follow that social. What, you're not going to basketball, you're not going to football, that kind of thing. Why isn't your child great at maths? Why aren't you going? All those kind of things. Don't you read every night before bed for 2 hours? Do what's right for you and your family, and especially for your child. If they're struggling with something, just do it in a slightly different way. Think of the way that they're going to enjoy doing it the most. A little bit like times tables. Okay, if you're not one to sit in the car and do it like some bright young sparks that do it on the way to school, then maybe
that's not us.
Exactly. Then maybe find a song or a YouTube video and do it just slightly differently, and find a way that they're going to enjoy it. That's what I would have liked to have told myself.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sitting here and sharing your own personal journey as well through this, but also the story behind your business and why you're so passionate about doing this. And like I said, I am truly grateful that there are people out there like yourself that are supporting other families, other children, other women, whatever that might look like, because you will have such a ripple effect in this life. And that's again why I'm so passionate about doing this, because I meet people like yourself and I'm just like, yes, these are the women that are changing the way, and together we will make such a wave. So I'm honestly so grateful. And if there is anybody out there, what I will do is I'll drop your link to your website underneath it in all the comments. And if there is anybody out there who is particularly struggling or has questions, I would absolutely say to them, reach out to Talia, and she will help you and she'll support you and set you off on the right route, whatever that might look like for yourself. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Oh, Sally, it's been a pleasure. And I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to talk with you, to be on your podcast. Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for what you're doing for everybody else as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm passionate about it, so I will keep going, because like I said, there are so many incredible women and I love being able to shine a light on them, but equally at the same time give support or help to someone else who I might never find out about.
Which is lovely. So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, my darling. Take care. Lots of love.
You too. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.